Hello, it's Greg at Adventure Spec. Today I'm going to tell you all about our new adventure touring suit, the Gravel Jacket and Pant. So this is Davey on a causeway on a beach up in the Outer Hebrides. I think it was on the Isle of, this one was on North Uist, I think. We'd been on a 1,000-mile journey from Newcastle, which is in England, all the way up to the northern tip of Scotland and up onto the islands. It was mostly road, with the idea that we might find some off-road up there, and some trails and some gravel, and as you can see, some sand and some beach. Now here in the UK, riding on the beach is quite a privilege. We don't really have a lot of access to that, so it was quite a special moment to find this causeway. We didn't know what was going on with the tides, or if there was quicksand, or you know, just if we could get back, but we gave it a go, and we survived, and we made a film about it, and you can go and watch that if you want to find out more about that trip. It was a pretty good one. But you can see here Davey's wearing the new Adventure Spec Gravel Jacket and Pant, and it's an adventure touring suit. This was one of the last significant bits of mileage we put on in our testing phase before we committed to production. It's really designed for this kind of riding. It's not so much a hardcore rally suit, it's not so much a hardcore trail riding suit, it's really designed for adventure touring. So longer distances that take in quite a bit of road, but you also need to perform off-road when required. And in this film I'm going to tell you a bit of the story of this project, why we developed it, how we developed it, the technology inside it. If you're just after a specific bit of information and you're here on YouTube, just jump on the chapters and go straight to the bit that you're after. Or if you've got a cup of tea in your hand and you're at home and your feet are up and you're in front of the TV and you're ready to hear me talk about all of the different elements of this project, settle in, and I will do my best to keep you entertained. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail about what we mean by an all-terrain four-season adventure touring suit. That's what the whole point of this film is, to explain that in more detail. But really, as a snapshot, really I would like you to take away the idea that the gravel suit is everything that we have learned here at Adventure Spec about lightweight adventure motorcycling, and packaged it into an adventure touring suit. As you will be familiar with the rest of the gear we make and the general Adventure Spec story, it's not really a all bells and whistles product. We haven't really approached this in the context of how can we cram as many features into this product as possible. There are lots of other touring suits out there that have that approach, and if you want more pockets, more zips, more bells, more whistles, the gravel suit might not be for you. Really, we've focused on what we know we need because we've needed it when we've been out riding, and we've really just focused on the essentials. That's not to say it's totally stripped back. You'll find that out by the end of this film, but really it's focused on what you need for adventure touring. And this entire gravel suit project really represents the next chapter in the Adventure Spec story. So here we got Chris out on the Tenere 700 World Raid. We'd been shooting some hard parts that we'd fitted onto this bike, and this is kind of really symbolic of the kind of machine and the kind of riding that the gravel suit is built for. So that's a larger mid-weight adventure motorcycle, and the gravel suit is really at home on that bike. And Sean, so this was up in Northumberland, North Northumberland, near Rothbury, and he's on his older GS. I'd love to get out on a new GS 1300 with the gravel suit, but yeah, he was on his older GS, and again, it's built for that bike. I don't think we ended the day at Starbucks on that particular shoot, but you probably would look all right in Starbucks, getting your skinny latte, frappuccino, whatever, in the gravel suit. I'm not complaining. And here we got Chris on the Adventure Spec Honda CRF 300L with all the Adventure Spec gear on. I guess I've thrown this in here to say, you know, we are focusing this on adventure touring, but hey, I don't mind what you adventure tour on. If you're putting a lot of miles on the road and you're going far and you're not doing hard technical off-road, then yeah, gravel's really built for that. Davey there. This was fairly recently. The winter snow hadn't quite disappeared yet up in Northumberland, but yeah, he's there on his KTM 790. I think that was like one of the first times he'd been out on that bike, but yeah, looked good. Chris over in the Lake District on the Gas ES 700, again with the Adventure Spec hard parts. Yeah, pretty comfortable, warm and dry in the gravel suit. So I've thrown these clips in here. This was me over in the Lake District. I can't remember what I was on. I was maybe on the CRF 300L at this point. And it absolutely hammered with rain. There's another film solely focused from that trip that you can go and find. I'll put links somewhere. But yeah, this was 8 hours of riding in wet Cumbrian Lake District weather, which is exactly what the Gravel Jacket and Pant is built for. You know, if you are doing big miles in the rain, you can be very, very appreciative of the waterproof performance of the Gravel Jacket and Pant, and I will get on to exactly what that performance looks like shortly. There's Chris in the gravel gear on that same trip, looking like a drowned rat, but pretty warm and dry underneath. I think this is on the approach to Glencoe. You're basically riding up towards the highlands, and this is a wonderful U-shaped valley, and we were stopping, getting off the bikes, going and exploring this waterfall. This is really what the gravel suit's designed to do: get on the bike, ride to wild places, get off the bike and go and enjoy and experience those wild places. It was such a treat finding the speech. I could talk all day about it, but it really felt like a massive reward at the end of our little exploration trip of the Outer Hebrides. Yeah, a really, really wonderful moment there. And that's Davey wearing the gravel suit. So where does the Gravel Jacket and Pant sit in terms of light bikes, mid-weight bikes, heavier weight bikes? Like I've mentioned, it's not really for me to say exactly what kind of bike you need to go adventure touring. You'll know from the Adventure Spec stories and the films that we've put out that we're a big fan of lighter bikes if you're going to go further and do more challenging terrain. Personally, I know that I don't have the skill set to ride a big heavy bike up some rocky, muddy, challenging trails where I'm going to be falling off and picking it up myself. I will always choose to be on a lighter bike for that. However, we might be riding like that on one weekend, and the next weekend going on an adventure that doesn't involve any of that kind of terrain or those experiences. So really, this chart is designed to help give an idea of the operating range, roughly. You know, all rules are there to be broken, but roughly the operating range that the Gravel Jacket and Pant is designed to be at its optimum in. I've put many hundreds of miles on the Gravel Jacket and Pant in its various prototypes over the last few years, really, that we've been developing it. And really, to summarize how it feels is to say it's actually the most mainstream motorcycle clothing that Adventure Spec has made. So if you're familiar with the concept of a textile touring suit, especially a 3-layer laminate touring suit, you will understand quite quickly what the Gravel Jacket and Pant is. What sets this apart from what you may have come to expect from other manufacturers is really, again, this focus on it being lighter weight, refined in terms of its features, and really built to stay true to the idea of layering, especially layering mid layers to regulate your temperature. So there is no drop liner inside it. It is a 3-part laminate construction, and I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. It has armour built into it, and I'm going to talk more about the armour that we're using in the Gravel Jacket and Pant shortly. I think one of the key things there is all of the armour is removable, and it's not just the armour that comes out, but actually the armour pockets. So essentially, once you stripped all out, you have an incredibly lightweight textile jacket. I would say much lighter weight than you would have perhaps experienced in more mainstream manufacturers. And really the reason why we've done that is because we know that in our community of motorcycling, people often put their armour in their base layer be it something like the core Armour pocket base layer or the super shirt, because we want to make sure that our armour is sitting in the right place, and then we want to layer up over the top of that. So once you've done that with the Gravel Jacket, and you take that Gravel Jacket off, it is incredibly lightweight and incredibly comfortable, and really doesn't restrict movement at all. That said, if your reference point is something like the Linesman jacket or the Singletrack jacket, it is heavier and more robust than both of those products. So Adventure Spec has been making lightweight adventure motorcycling gear for a while now. It's probably been about 10 years since we started this project. And everything we've brought to market has really been focused under this banner of light is right. And I know that statement kind of conjures different emotions in different people. But at its essence, that statement's really about giving us more freedom, more safety and more comfort, and more ability to adapt to the environments that we're riding through. We've borrowed a lot from the outdoors sector, and I very much see where we're going as a company as a real hybrid between motorcycling and outdoors. We make outdoors gear for adventure motorcyclists, and much like the outdoor community, the aim, the ambition, the reason for being is to get into the outdoors and experience wild places. Some people choose to do that by foot, some people choose to do that in kayaks, on mountain bikes, and we choose to do it on our adventure motorcycles. And for us, our bikes are a tool for exploring the outdoors and accessing wild places. At the heart of that outdoor approach is this idea of layering, or ADV layering as we like to call it. And we're not inventing anything new there. We're borrowing heavily from established practices in the outdoors, alpine, mountaineering sectors, which is all about layering up or down based on the conditions that you're experiencing. And up to now, it's been about this idea of if it's not raining, why wear waterproof gear? If it is raining, put your waterproof gear on. If it's cold, put a mid layer on to warm up. If you're getting hot and sweaty because you're dropping the bike and doing something that's raising your core body temperature, take layers off. And something like the super shirt really allows you to layer up and down with a lot of freedom. So if we backtrack, the first chapter of this story that Adventure Spec is telling really started with Lyndon Poskett and his Dakar campaign. And Lyndon's taken part in the Dakar rally a number of times. He did 2 back-to-back attempts in the Malimoto class that we were involved in. And we worked with Lyndon to create a range of gear, which became the Atacama and Mongolia jackets and pants. And really the focus there was about how do we kind of build the toughest, most lightweight gear that was expected to perform at a professional level. So essentially a pro athlete, pro motorcycle, adventure motorcycle, rally rider, competing to win stages. So it needed to be tough, it needed to be light, it needed to be breathable, it needed to be adaptable, all those things that you need out of your gear when you're taking part in the Dakar rally. It was really performance focused. And everything that we made there for Lyndon translated into the gear that you can buy today. In fact, the thing that we added was the CE certification that you need to be able to ride on the road. So the Mongolia gear especially is really, really focused at people that are either performing at a professional level or just need real performance out of their adventure motorcycle trail riding gear. And then the next chapter, and it's quite hard to wind back to a point where this chapter didn't exist, but there was a time not so long ago that the Trans-Euro Trail, you said the Trans-Euro Trail and no one would know what you're talking about because it's not really been around that long. As much as it's become such an established part of the adventure motorcycling language and dialogue, it hasn't been around that long. We've been doing it for a long time, but we didn't have a banner like the Trans-Euro Trail to identify our tribe under. So John Ross, who founded the Trans-Euro Trail, came to Adventure Spec, and we worked together to get that project off the ground. We're really proud of everything that we did there. And really, the Trans-Euro Trail or trail riding chapter was all about how do we, it was less about the performance, kind of putting in, good sector times that Lyndon was doing over in the Dakar, and how do we create gear that had a high level of performance, but also a high level of adaptability, comfort. It wasn't about going super fast. It was about exploring on lightweight bikes, multi-day camping, stuff that needed to work on the bike. We needed to get off the bike and go and set up camp, explore villages, have a nice coffee, a leisurely coffee somewhere on a little town square, then get on the bike and put another 50 miles on, 80 miles, 100 miles, get to camp at the end of the day. And we just needed gear that allowed us a maximum amount of versatility for those kinds of adventure holidays, really. And through those two chapters, we learned a huge amount about manufacturing gear. We learned a lot about the requirements of CE testing and how to build in the safety elements that motorcyclists require. Essentially, how to make outdoors gear that is built for adventure motorcyclists and can be sold as adventure motorcycling gear. We learned a huge amount about waterproofing. Our factories upgraded their seam taping equipment. We've invested a huge amount in learning how to make 3-layer fabrics. And I'll get into some of the technology behind that in a moment. But essentially, those two chapters allowed us to learn just a huge amount about making outdoors gear for adventure motorcyclists. So how does all of that experience fold into the needs of a longer distance adventure touring motorcyclist? So in some ways, although the Gravel Jacket and Pant is our most up-to-date and latest and newest product, it has like a direct line that takes you all the way back to our very first product. And that was way back over 10 years ago now, the Magadan panniers. And although the adventure motorcycling luggage sector has become very busy in recent years, at the time that the Magadans came out, they were pretty groundbreaking because it was in the period of big aluminium panniers strapped to or bolted onto kind of big bikes. And we know that that isn't right for the kind of riding that we do. And you can find out more about the story of the Magadan panniers on the Magadan pannier video, but in a snapshot, they came about because of Walter Kolbach, quite a well-known long-distance adventure motorcycling pioneer, really, who was opening up routes through Siberia, Russia, to Magadan itself, which is a very isolated town, village, location in the middle of nowhere. So Walter had designed this soft luggage, and it was built around his needs of riding long distances on middleweight bikes, not all through really, really tough technical terrain, although there was some very, very technical terrain, but really it's about putting big miles on very, very poor roads, on broken surfaces. And if you look back at Walter's images from that period, he was wearing an adventure touring textile suit. And really, in many ways, what we have built now is what would have been perfect for Walter, although we're kind of a decade too late. So in that context, the gravel suit is built for the round-the-world rider, the long-distance rider, the person that's putting big miles on terrain that is not sure what it's going to be like, but it's likely to not be perfect, hence the name gravel. We could have called it the broken asphalt suit, but we thought gravel was a little bit sexier. Okay, so I've dropped two photos in here to give a little bit of context to what I'm talking about. So in this image, this was in Wales a few years ago in the summer. I'd ridden my AJP PR7 into a deceptively deep, boggy, wet puddle. Got totally stuck. semi-drowned the bike, had to get off the bike, was wet mud up to my thighs. I couldn't get it out myself. I needed help to get that out. That was like a 4-man job to drag that bike out, get it upright, drain all the water out of the exhaust. There is a movie, follow the links if you want to find it. But really, if you're experiencing and you're expecting to experience this kind of riding, then yeah, the Linesman gear, the Super Shirt, the Mongolia gear is really built for that. In some ways, I wouldn't have wanted the outcome exactly like that, but I was out searching that kind of experience. I was out there searching for something that was more challenging, and had geared up accordingly. So in this next photo, this is Davey with his leg swung over the GasGas ES700. So this was up in Scotland last year in the summer. Amazing trip. Again, there's a film. Davey is wearing the Gravel Jacket and Pant, and really, this is so well suited to what this this gear was designed to do. It was hundreds of miles on the road. Once we got up there, we were finding gravel tracks, light gravel tracks. It wasn't about finding big, wet, muddy bogs to get stuck in. It wasn't about kind of really pushing ourselves and our bikes to our limits. It was just about it was the essence of an adventure touring experience. And I can't really kind of sum it up, but I think the only other way to sum this up better than this was if we'd gone to Scandinavia and we'd ridden hundreds of miles of gravel through forests, through exploring kind of big mountain scenery and lakes and all the rest of it. And the gravel suit is really designed for just putting on those big miles. It's not really on that kind of experience. If you're on a bigger bike, yes, you might be camping and you might be staying in huts and all the rest of it, but you're not really seeking out the most extreme trails that you can find. It's a different experience. Okay, the features and the technology. Now, I know that some of you may have just skipped from the start straight to this bit because this is what you're looking for. If you have, welcome. Now, in this section, I'm going to go into some of the technology. I've talked about the why and who it's for and how you can expect it to perform. I'm going to talk now about some of the technology that's gone into the development of the Gravel Jacket and Pant, the gravel suit. And we're going to start with the what I think is the most important feature in the Gravel Jacket and Pant, which is also kind of the least sexy and hardest to market because it's not a fancy zip or a bit of fancy tech. It is the 3-layer laminate fabric. And really, if you're going to get one thing right, it needs to be the fabric. You can put whatever bells and whistles and zips and buckles you like on an adventure touring suit, but if the fabric isn't doing what you need it to do, then you're in trouble. So to talk about the fabric and what waterproof 3-layer laminate fabric is, what it does, how it's made, and what you need to look out for, I'm going to introduce our resident expert, Jim Evans. So Jim has got a huge amount of experience in the outdoors sector. He's worked with some of the biggest brands that you'll probably have in a cupboard in your outdoor cupboard at home, you'll definitely have heard of. So yeah, Jim is going to talk us through some of the tech behind the Gravel Jacket and Pant.
Hi, I'm Jim Evans and I've joined the Adventure Spec team to help with a bit of the product development. I've spent the last 35 years of my life working in the outdoor industry, working for brands as varied as kayak and canoeing brands to sock brands to climbing and mountaineering brands. And I really enjoy getting into the tech of a product and understanding how they're made, where we get the fabrics from. You know, I'm no industry professor on this, but I like to think I know more than the average Joe. So what fabrics are we using in the gravel suit? So primarily we're using a 3-layer laminate fabric, and it's worth just talking about what a 3-layer fabric is. In the outdoor industry, most people know what a 3-layer fabric and a 2-layer fabric is. In the motorcycle industry, there's a little bit of confusion that can happen here. I remember when I bought my first textile suit, it was a 3-layer, branded as a 3-layer suit. So that came as the outside textile suit. I could then zip in a waterproof liner, and then I could zip in a thermal liner, and that was classed as a 3-layer garment. What we're talking about is a 3-layer laminate. So this piece of fabric that the gravel suit is primarily made from is made from 3 layers of different fabrics. So Greg Handley's cut me out some nice piece of card to illustrate this. So on the outside layer, we've got our 500D nylon 6/6. In the middle of our sandwich, we've got a membrane, and that provides our waterproofness and our breathability. And then behind that, we have a fine mesh fabric called a scrim. And that protects the membrane because it's quite a fine, fragile layer, but it also helps distribute moisture behind that membrane, so this membrane can deal with it in terms of moisture vapor. We'll talk about more about later. But effectively, all those 3 layers are glued together under high pressure and stuck together, so when you pick up that piece of fabric, it feels just like one piece of fabric. It bends and flows together. So on the gravel suit, we have the 500D nylon, and we also have a Kevlar reinforced polyester. Both are 3-layered, and actually on this polyester, Kevlar reinforced polyester, I can actually, this is from right at the edge of the roll where it's not been totally glued together, I can actually peel this apart. So you can see the scrim on the back, that fine mesh, you can see my fingers through it. That white layer, that's the membrane, that's a PU membrane, and on the outside we've got this Kevlar reinforced polyester. So once we put those 3 layers together and laminate them together, we're left with a really, really lightweight, abrasion proof, windproof and waterproof fabric that we can make the gravel suit out of. So what makes this fabric breathable? So the membrane that we're using is a PU membrane, and you've got to imagine it looks not dissimilar to a plastic bag you'd put your sandwiches in. That's a hydrophilic membrane, and that transports water on a molecular level through its chemistry effectively. I don't want to get too deep into the science because I'm not a university professional, I don't know it inside out. What I do know is there's 2 types of breathable fabric. There's hydrophilic, which is the one we're using, and there's also microporous, which, let's say, the brand leader of breathable fabric, certainly in the outdoor industry, uses. That's a structure that has a series of holes in it, and those holes are big enough to allow water vapor through, but those holes are small enough that they won't let water droplets go through. But they have a physical hole for the water vapor to go through, whereas we're using a hydrophilic membrane which transports water through the molecular structure of that membrane. Why do we use a hydrophilic membrane over a microporous? The main reason is durability for us. In motorcycling, we face quite a lot of oil and debris and stuff like that from the road surface, from other cars, from our own bikes and stuff like that. A microporous membrane can get bunged up by those quite quickly unless you clean it and maintain it a lot. So we've chosen to use the hydrophilic membrane because we feel, in our experience and all the tests we've done, that membrane works better for long-term travel where you might not be able to wash your jacket all the time. It just keeps on working. So if you look at a lot of sailing garments, they'll use hydrophilic because a microporous membrane can get clogged up by the salt from the ocean. We're kind of using it for the same practicalities of on the road and the trail, that there's so much dust, grime and dirt involved in adventure motorcycling that hydrophilic membrane works much better for us. So I can demonstrate that this fabric's breathable to you with a relatively simple experiment. So if we fill this glass with boiling water, and then we place the fabric over the top of the water and hold it down with an elastic band, it's quite quite warm in here, so we'll have to get a piece of glass to be able to show you this clearly. And if I hold that piece of glass above this, the boiling water, you can see the steam coming through the fabric and condensing on the glass above. And that's what we mean by breathability. That's your sweat effectively being able to pass through the fabric to the outside world. We've mimicked it by putting boiling water in, or hot water in the glass. Your body heats up that microclimate inside your jacket to a higher humidity and a higher temperature than the outside. And what the membrane wants to do, and what nature wants to do, is equalize everything. So it wants to push that water out of the jacket to try and get it to the same humidity and temperature as the outside, and that's what keeps us comfortable. You'll see lots and lots of numbers quoted about how breathable different fabrics are. To my knowledge, there's, I think, 6 different tests now that tell you how breathable a fabric is. Most people don't tell you what those the tests they're using are. The number at the end of it all look the same. They're all a number in the thousands with millimeters after it, or grams per meter squared per hour, something like that. But they've all been tested slightly differently. I was talking to a university lecturer when I was kind of early in my outdoor career, and he said something that really rung true to me, that it doesn't really matter how breathable that fabric is. You've got 4 holes in a jacket which will let far more moisture out far quicker than any fabric will, and those are the 2 armholes, the neck hole, and the bottom of your jacket. So if you zip yourself completely into your jacket, you create this lovely warm microclimate, and you feel warm instantly. But the more moisture that builds up in that microclimate, over time, the more uncomfortable you'll be. And that's why layering is really, really important. That's why we have the scrim on the back of the fabric to distribute moisture over the whole of the jacket, so we can try and use all of it to breathe that moisture out of the jacket. And also in layering, a base layer does the same. It takes that moisture away from your skin to the outside of the base layer where it can be evaporated. And it's that moisture against your skin that we're trying to prevent. That's where you get cold, because water is a fantastic thermal conductor. So if we can take that away from the skin, into a base layer, into a mid layer, into the inside of your garment, and then hopefully to the outside of the gravel jacket, that's what's going to keep you comfortable. Cool, so we've got our 3-layer fabric, and we've talked about breathability and waterproofness. But let's take the quality that I was talking about, is abrasion. And what does 500D mean? What does Kevlar reinforced polyester mean? And really, that's the outer layer of the fabric. And 500 denier is the weight of the yarn that we make that fabric out of. So 1 denier yarn would be a piece of silk. So you can imagine how thin and fine that is. The threads that we're weaving our fabric out of are 500 denier. So it's not quite 500 times the thickness of a piece of silk. That's not quite how the maths works. But to all intents and purposes, imagine, they're considerably thicker than that single denier. They're then all woven together with a warp and weave, and the closer we can get those. I'm trying to show you how to weave with my fingers, and the closer we can get those threads together, the denser the fabric that we get, and then the more durable it gets. Adventure motorcycling is all about compromise, and in the gravel suit, we had to consider quite a lot of compromises in the fabric that we chose. We could have made a suit out of 1600D ballistic nylon, laminated together. It would be unbelievably abrasion resistant, but you'd be like riding a suit of armour. And there's voices out there that could say that's more dangerous. You're more likely to have an accident and fall off because you're getting tired because you're fighting this big heavy suit, versus something that's still abrasion resistant but not quite as much, but it's a lot lighter and subtle and more easy to ride in, so you can ride it for longer without getting tired, and in theory then increasing your safety. So before we finish making the gravel suit and sending it off for CE test, we do a lot of research on the fabrics to make sure that they're as abrasion resistant as they need to be, or higher than, for us to build a suit that will pass the CE rating that we want to do. We knew with the gravel suit we wanted to hit a AA rating, which meant our fabrics have to go on to something called a Darmstadt test, and that's essentially a weight that spins incredibly fast. So for AA zone 1, that has to spin at 412 RPM. Once it's up to that speed, the test house then pushes a button and essentially crashes that weight onto a piece of concrete. It's a very specific piece of concrete that has ISO standards to it as well. And to pass the rating, A, it has to slow down at a certain rate, and B, the fabric can't be holed, or over a series of tests, a number of those can't be holed. We know that this 500D fabric on its own passes that test, and essentially our entire gravel pant and gravel suit are made of that. However, we like to keep riders that little bit safer. We don't like to lie on our laurels going, we can just get past it. So in those real contact patch areas that we know will probably hit the ground first, or are just getting caught out and about, so we know you kneel down quite a lot, we know you know, leaning down, you might scrub your shoulder on a wall, gatepost and stuff like that. So those contact patches we reinforce with this Kevlar reinforced polyester. So this has just over 20% of its yarns are a Kevlar based yarn, which just increases its abrasion resistance, and that's put over our Cordura, which we already know passes AA on its own. So, you know, those two layers on its own just increase that still further. And then we also know under that you're going to have a pad. So we're just looking, you know, how can we make the lightest, most protective piece of motorcycle clothing, in our opinion, that then balances that against the CE testing. So we've got our amazing 3-layer fabric, which is waterproof, breathable, and windproof. The problem is when we sew a jacket together, we create loads and loads of tiny little holes. Each needle punch where we're putting the thread through creates a little hole where moisture could get in. So we need to fill all of those gaps. So if we turn one of our jackets inside out, you can see all of these kind of slightly different coloured lines throughout the jacket, and that's called seam tape, and that's effectively put onto the jacket with a hot glue. So it's quite a clever machine that heats the glue and then passes it through two wheels that push it together and bond it together. We've worked closely with a branded seam tape manufacturer to work out what seam tape works best with this 3-layer fabric. They've worked really closely with our factory where we brought new seam taping machines in, because seam taping kind of heavier 3-layer products is actually quite a complex and skilled art. And you'll also see there's quite a few kind of almost like dots of fabric throughout it as well, and they're reinforcement points throughout the seam taping. Where we feel there might be a stress point or a weak point, they're reinforced still further. The seam tape we use is a 25mm seam tape, and this used to be industry standard in the outdoors from the 80s, when sort of Berghaus and Gore-Tex and stuff like that first started bringing taped garments to the fore. If you turn a modern outdoor jacket inside out, weights become the key feature. So because of that, seam tape's got thinner and thinner and thinner. But the outdoor industry's kind of accepting that they're forgoing durability for weight. In motorcycling, we want to keep that durability there, so we've maintained this 25mm seam tape because we know it's going to last longer and perform better over the lifespan of the jacket.
And so if you're going to build waterproof gear, you're going to have to get out and test it. So I had quite a lot of miles over the last year or so getting out in some of the worst weather I could find, which was fortunately quite easy because it basically rained for 12 months here in England. I don't know about you, but it was incredibly wet winter and summer. So yeah, here we got Chris up in the Lake District, and he's on the CRF 300L. This was on a kind of a rocky, slatey kind of like pass. And we were out with Adam in the background there, and Rupert in the background as well. And yeah, Chris fully tested the waterproofing of the Gravel Jacket and Pant. What I would say in the development of that is that in the early stages, we were using our older seam taping machines, which we've been using to great effect on our Singletrack jackets. But because the Gravel Jacket is a 500 denier fabric, it's thicker and heavier than the 240D of the Singletrack. We discovered that we had to upgrade our seam taping capabilities, so our factory invested in new seam taping equipment, and that solved the seam taping issues really well. Yeah, so this is Clive consoling Chris after he dropped the CRF, and you can see Clive's wearing the lighter weight Aquapack jacket there, which is a waterproof over jacket, but doesn't have any armour and has less abrasion resistance qualities in it. And this is me in the Lake District again. I'm wearing the Gravel Jacket. I've actually paired it with the Singletrack pant, which is a very similar pant, and you can find out more about the difference between the Singletrack and the Gravel pant shortly in this film. But yeah, I'm down there, hands and knees, getting photos of Rupert, I think, at that stage. Fortunately, my camera is weather sealed, or else it would have been pretty broken, I think, at that point.
Okay, we have stopped for lunch, and it's going to be wet. It's been wet all day, so now's a bit of a test to see how the gear has performed. So let's have a look.
I thought I'd just leave this in because, again, this was a testing trip, or a testing of the prototype trip, and so at lunchtime we'd found a cafe and we walked in, like everything was steamed up, everyone was so wet, and I honestly, on this prototype, I didn't fully know what to expect when I would take it off.
Look at that.
Totally dry.
Dry?
Yeah, totally dry.
That's a thumbs up. We'll start making those.
And I was really impressed to find that despite the 4 or 5 hours of constant rain, there'd been no water ingress at all. I was really happy with that. Okay, so you've heard Jim talk about the 3-layer laminated waterproof fabric, which is really the key feature of the Gravel Jacket and Pant. But alongside that, while I have said there's not a huge amount of bells and whistles, and we haven't put stuff in there just for the sake of it, we haven't just added extra pockets, etc., just because more features must be better. There are some really important features in here, and I'm going to talk them through. So while we're focusing on the water repellency and the waterproofness of the Gravel Jacket and Pant, which comes in at, the fabric comes in at a 30,000 meter hydrostatic head, which Jim's talked about a little bit. One of the key features on the jacket, on the front of the jacket, is what we call like a storm flap. So essentially there's a double closure mechanism on the front of the jacket, which allows you to zip it up on the inside and then double closure with buttons over the top of that, which really minimizes the chance of water ingress coming through. And if you think about someone, a walker or an alpinist or something like that, generally in the outdoor sector, if it's raining hard, the most pressure of water you're going to get is coming from the wind blowing into you. Whereas on a motorcycle, it can be raining hard and you could be riding at 70 miles an hour, which really asks a lot of your waterproof gear, because you're really driving through that rain. And so again, that double closure mechanism on the front is designed to minimize water ingress. A very obvious design feature are these abrasion panels on the shoulders, elbows, hips and knees of the jacket and pant. So these are constructed from a blend of 22% Kevlar and 78% polyester, and we've chosen those materials to increase the abrasion resistance of these panels. So essentially you've got your 500D main panels, which are very abrasion resistant, and then you've got these additional abrasion panels over the top, and they're really designed there to increase that abrasion resistance performance. Okay, the armour. There is a reason why I've had this armour laid out in front of me here on the desk. So the Gravel Jacket ships with back, shoulder elbow armour in place, and the pant ships with knee armour and hip armour. So if you're familiar with Adventure Spec clothing, you will notice immediately that this is new. This is different armour to what we have used previously. And we've been working with a manufacturer to develop our own bespoke armour. So the Gravel Jacket and Pant is one of the first products that we're using to ship this new armour. What you will notice, everything here is level 2. It's all been CE certified and all contributes to the CE AA rating of the Gravel Jacket and Pant. The key difference here, or there are some key differences here, between the armour we've used in the past and the armour that we are now using to move forwards. So as you can see, this is the shoulder piece. It is very, very see-through. I don't know if you can see through here, but it is very, very perforated. It's got this honeycomb pattern, and this allows a lot more breathability. It is also extremely flexible. Okay, so you can see just how easy it is to kind of fold that up, and especially when you're wearing it on your body, it warms up and molds to the shape of your body parts very, very, very well. So that is the shoulder armour. The elbow armour is similar. This is also can be used in the knees, but for the moment we're just using these in the elbow. It sits there. The other significant piece here, I mean, look, like that is the back armour. It has this honeycomb pattern, massively perforated, which is going to be really, really good at reducing temperature and sweat buildup on your back. You can see here, if I fold that up, kind of how flexible it is in that direction, which is your forwards and backwards movement. And we're also shipping that in 2 sizes. So there's a size that is sized for the larger jackets, the largest XLs, double XLs, and then there's another size for the smalls and mediums. So that's just to get a better fit. The armor pocket for the back protector has an integrated kidney belt. So once you've got all that on, you've got the extra support that a kidney belt provides. But again, that comes off. It's part of the armor pocket, and it's very easy to remove if you want to. The other kind of key thing to mention, I have talked about this already, is that all of these armor pieces sit inside armor pockets, and those armor pockets are entirely removable. So they're attached to the jacket using Velcro, and it's very, very easy to not just remove the armor itself, but remove the pocket entirely. So should you be wearing your armor on a layer underneath, like on the super shirt or the core armor pocket, it allows the Gravel jacket to become incredibly lightweight, non-bulky, and very, very comfortable. I guess the thing to point out there is, should you be wearing the super shirt with the Gravel jacket over the top, I don't have a test rating for what that is. What I can say is that the super shirt is a CE garment, and you're putting another CE garment over the top. So you can draw your own conclusions about the level of CE performance that that's going to give you. So with the Gravel pant, we've got the lower leg armor. So I'll start with the hip. This is an even more flexible armor panel. What we found in the past is the hip armor that we've used is a little bulky, and we were really keen to find a slimmer, low profile solution. So again, this is level 2 tested and certified, and that is super, super flexible, much, much thinner and more comfortable. And honestly, you just don't know it's there. That's my experience. It doesn't bulge out at all. And we have a different approach to our knee armor. So the knee armor that we're using here, you can see immediately that it's oversized. And this gives you really, really big coverage from the top of your knee all the way down to your shin. One of the key reasons why we've chosen this is not only for the extra protection that we feel adventure motorcyclists are looking for. Your lower legs do get quite hammering. The Gravel pant is designed with an innovative feature that we've kind of called a floating knee pocket. And what that means is that the armor pocket is attached at the top, but free floating at the bottom. And that allows you to take your knee armour and insert it inside your adventure boot and buckle up and close the boot around the armour. And that's going to mean that this armour is going to stay in place as you're riding, sitting, standing. It doesn't move. It's a really good way of keeping that where it needs to be. If we didn't have that, the armour would be sitting essentially, especially if you've got tall adventure boots, it would be sitting over the top of your adventure boot, which is really not where you need it to be. So this approach keeps it really close to your knee. This is perforated, so you're going to get a little bit of air through it, but I would say that this knee armour is not quite as flexible. You know, we could also use this in the knee armour. My experience is when you've got something on your upper body, you want it as minimal. You just don't want to feel it. You know, you want to know it's going to perform if you come down on it, but really you're not putting any pressure on it. With your knee armour, it's like saying to a tradesman, here's some knee armour for your to put in your trousers. It's so thin and light that you're not even going to know it's there. Well, if it's so thin and light if you don't know it's there, you're going to hurt your knees when you feel kneeling down on the ground. So we actually opted for knee armour that was a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier than the rest of our range, because, you know, when you are kneeling on the ground, you want to know that your knees are protected and that there's a cushion between your knee and the hard ground that you're kneeling on. The Gravel Jacket and Gravel Pant zip together by the means of an oversized zip along the lower back. So once you've got the pant on, you can put the jacket on, zip it together. There's a stretchy panel there between the jacket and the zip, so there is some flexibility for when you're moving, but essentially this is going to give you the reassurance that should you come off, the back of the jacket isn't going to ride up. It's also going to give you some added weather protection. So if it's particularly windy or raining, you know that essentially you're turning these two items not fully into one, because it is open at the front, but especially on the back, you're putting that closure and bringing the jacket and pant together. So those features, the abrasion protection, the impact protection, the ability to put the jacket and pant together, they're all really focused on the safety performance. The Gravel Jacket and Pant has been put through independent lab tests and comes back at a CE AA rating. We're really happy with that. Everyone will have their own opinion on what kind of C certification they're looking for. You may not need high at all, and you can go for very low certification, anything down from C all the way up to you might need or be more comfortable with AAA, which is the absolute top level of performance. What we find is once you start approaching that top level, you start sacrificing a little bit of comfort, depending on the kind of riding that you want to do. It's entirely up to you. We've focused and pitched this at CEAA. We were really happy to get that performance. That gives us the safety that we feel we need as adventure motorcyclists, but doesn't restrict the freedom of movement and comfort that we also need as adventure motorcyclists. Okay, zips. For some reason, everyone wants a lot. There are two things that people want a lot of on their adventure touring textile gear, and that's zips and pockets. So we have those. We just only have as many as we think we need, and we haven't gone over the top. So on the jacket, we've got these big chest ventilation zips on the front. So when these are undone, you get a huge air intake. Behind those zips is a mesh material, and that is a safety feature. So should you have the zips open and you come off, that's going to prevent the jacket and the zip from opening out. So that is a requirement of CE certification. But we've got these two big zips on the front, intake zips, and then mirroring those on the back, on the side, are two big exhaust vents, again zipped. So once you've got the front open and the back open, you get a huge amount of airflow from front to back, or you can adjust it up and just have one side open and the other side closed, depending on what you need. We have some arm ventilation. So here on the inside arm, there's some zips that follow a seam line up on the lower forearm on the inside. Again, as your arms are outstretched and you're riding, that's going to promote some airflow coming up through the sleeves and out through the back. On the pant, we've got quite a simple configuration. We've got two large thigh vents, zip vents, again backed by a mesh material. So on the front, they're larger, and then on the back of the thigh, we've got some smaller exhaust port or exhaust vents. So once you've got both of those open, you're going to get a lot of airflow from front to back, and I can really it's the same setup as we have on the Singletrack pant, and it really does work. You can really make quite a significant difference in hot weather having them open, or if it's been pouring with rain and everything's a little bit wet, and you just want to promote a bit of airflow in a period of dry weather. It works really, really well. Okay, pockets, that other favorite. We have pockets. We've got standard hand warmer pockets like you would expect on the jacket, and on the back you'll notice there's a large rear pocket on the lower back of the Gravel jacket. Great for having a spare set of gloves or something in there that you might need quick access to that you don't want to keep in your front pockets. Underneath the storm flap on the front, we've got document pockets on the left and right. Pretty handy for keeping passport if you needed it, getting through passport control, or as I experienced riding through Europe, keeping your toll cards to get through the toll roads. And on the pant, it's a fairly simple configuration. We've got these two large thigh pockets. Again, it's the same setup as on the Singletrack pant. They're really designed to be large enough to put in a large mobile phone that everyone has these days. Okay, up to the neck, you'll notice there's a black trim that runs all the way around the neck, and that's like a neoprene kind of soft to touch fabric that runs all the way around the neck for added comfort. And on the back of the neck, there's a cinched cord that allows you to pull that neck tight should it be pouring with rain, and reduce the chance of water coming down your helmet and down the back of your neck. Okay, there are two significant features on the Gravel pant that I wanted to flag up. One of them's very obvious. You can see these black panels. These are Hypalon panels that runs all the way around the outside of the pant, and that Hypalon is for durability. It's also really good at kind of mud washing off and not building up on the lower leg where you get all your mud splashes and all the rest of it. It's also very grippy. We've used it on our other pants, on our Mongolia pant in particular. It's also on the Singletrack pant, but it's pretty grippy. So when you're stood up and you're riding and you're kind of controlling the bike by gripping it with the inside of your knees, that Hypalon works really well there as well. Okay, the lower leg, this is an important one. The Gravel pant is designed for adventure touring. It is designed for people who are wearing adventure touring boots. I wear the City Adventure 2s. They are a reasonably chunky off-road boot, but the important thing there is at the top of the boot, they don't have great big extra buckles all the way up to the top. Typically, an adventure touring boot is a little bit slimmer than a full-on motocross boot, which tends to be very, very chunky. So we've got two options here. For adventure tourers who are wearing adventure touring boots, the Gravel pant is designed to fit perfectly over your boot. If you choose to wear more protection on your feet, so if you wear a motocross style boot, Tech 7s, Alpine Star Tech 7s, that kind of thing, that are very big up at the top, the Gravel pant is unlikely to fit. However, you have a really good option in the Singletrack pant. Just skip forwards a little bit and you'll find me talking about this, but essentially the Singletrack pant is virtually identical to the Gravel pant, apart from two differences. One being the lower leg closure is much wider. It's specifically designed to go over large motocross boots. It's also cut looser in the knee because it's designed to work for people that wear their own knee armor, knee braces. It's really a pure off-road version of the Gravel pant. You might not need that. The Singletrack pant is there if you do need it, but if you don't, the Gravel pant should work perfectly if you wear traditional adventure motorcycle boots. So the Gravel pant comes with brace loops, suspender loops if you're in America, so they're compatible with the Adventure Spec braces and suspenders if you want to wear them to help keep them hitched up tight. Highly recommend. It's a very, very comfortable way of riding using braces, suspenders. And the Gravel pant also comes not only with a 3-layer laminate fabric, but has a mesh lining as well. Unlike the jacket, where you're unlikely to be wearing the jacket against your skin, with the pant, there's a high chance that you would put the pant on with nothing underneath. So the mesh lining adds a layer of comfort. You can, of course, put a core base layer underneath to add more warmth, but it's not necessary for comfort. So CE certification matters. Here in Europe, everything that is sold for motorcycling as a motorcycle PPE, personal protective equipment, needs to be CE certified. That gives us, you, me, the rider, the information we need to make an informed choice about how much protective gear we want to wear and what we can expect that gear to do in the event of a crash. So in order to get CE certification, the jacket, the pant, the Gravel Jacket and Pant has been submitted to an independent test lab where they run a whole battery of tests. Currently, the top level of certification is AAA, and then we go AA, A, B, C. So the Gravel Jacket and Pant perform at a CE AA rating, which is what we were aiming for, which we're really happy with. Motorcycling, adventure motorcycling, is all about compromise. Really, the goal, the dream, is an item of clothing that is as comfortable as if it were just an everyday item, but as safe as you could possibly imagine it. That is a bit of a unicorn. We're getting a bit closer with the development of our work, but essentially that goal is very hard to achieve. You can be fully protected and have the most protection and CE AA, all the rest of it, and be as protected as you could expect to be on your motorcycle, but the compromise you're going to make there often is comfort. So it might be heavier, bulkier, stiffer, hotter, all those things. Or you could have no protection at all and be very, very comfortable, no restrictions at all. However, you don't have any protection should you need it. So it's all about figuring out whereabouts on that line you're prepared to, or what's more important to you. For us, AA represents a level of protection that we're happy with, but also doesn't introduce the restrictions and compromises that a higher rated garment might include. I think the key thing to take away there is that a lot of the riding that we're going to be doing on with the Gravel Jacket is on the road. So actually, out of all the gear that we make, I think, maybe not including the super shirt, but I think that the C certification is most relevant here because it represents the level of risk that is most appropriate to people that are riding on the road, which again, that is what the Gravel Jacket and Pant is really designed to perform well on. Okay, in this section I'm going to talk about the Gravel Jacket and Pant in the context of how it sits amongst the rest of what Adventure Spec make. So if you have already got some of this gear, some of this Adventure Spec gear, this should give you a better idea of what to expect out of the Gravel Jacket and Pant. Or if you're trying to make your mind up about which product might be best suited to your needs, this section's for you. Okay, so the Gravel Jacket and Pant versus the Singletrack Jacket and Pant. The easy one here is the Gravel Pant and the Singletrack Pant are almost identical. We developed these two products at the same time in line with each other. We brought the Singletrack Pant to market first because it's not CE certified, because it's designed to be worn over your own protective armour. That allowed us to get it out and bring it to you faster. So if you have the Singletrack pant and you had the Gravel pant next to it and you were trying them both on, what you would notice is this. Firstly, they're almost identical. They are going to feel very, very similar. The main differences are that the knee box area on the Singletrack pant is a little bit more relaxed because the chances are you're wearing your own knee braces. And on the Gravel pant, it's less relaxed. It's still comfortable, but it's not baggy at all, because the idea is that it has the knee armour built into it. On the Singletrack pant, the lower leg closure is huge. It just opens out massively, and it's designed to go over the biggest motocross boots that are available. On the Gravel pant, the lower leg closure is a simple zip down and a button at the bottom. There's no extra buckles, there's no Velcro. It's a zip and a button, and that is designed for adventure boots, not motocross boots. If you wear knee armour and you wear big motocross boots, Singletrack pant is for you. If you don't wear knee armour, or if you don't wear knee braces and you wear your armour in your pant and you have traditional smaller adventure boots, the Gravel pant is for you. In relation to the jackets, the Singletrack jacket and the Gravel jacket are quite different. So I've talked a lot about the Gravel jacket, so in this film I've explained it. The Singletrack jacket is a very lightweight, waterproof over jacket. It does not include armour. It's designed to go over your own protective gear that you're wearing underneath. I ride with the super shirt on. In the winter I might have the super shirt and Baltic mid layer, and if it's cold I'll put the Singletrack jacket over the top, and that'll give me my wind and waterproof, my wind and water protection. The Gravel jacket, if you had the Gravel and the Singletrack jacket next to each other, you'll notice that the Gravel jacket is more substantial than the Singletrack jacket. It's going to feel heavier because it's got armour in it, and it's going to feel stiffer because it's a 500D fabric rather than the 240D fabric on the Singletrack jacket. The Singletrack jacket is much more in line with what you'd expect as a waterproof walking jacket. The Gravel jacket feels like a motorcycle jacket. That said, as I've mentioned, once you take the armour out and the armour pockets out of the Gravel jacket, it does feel quite a lot lighter, but it's not going to feel as lightweight as the Singletrack jacket. Okay, Gravel Jacket Pant and Linesman Jacket and Pant. So these are quite different products. One of the things you'll have picked up on through this film is the waterproof qualities of the Gravel Jacket and Pant. It's really designed to be worn in poor weather. The Linesman Jacket and Pant are going to feel very, very different. The Linesman Jacket and Pant are not waterproof. They're fast drying and they will protect you from a light rain shower, but they are not waterproof. The Linesman Jacket and Pant are really designed for trail riding in warmer climates where you're going to put a waterproof layer over the top if you need it. The Linesman Jacket and Pant, they don't feel like motorcycle products, motorcycle protective products, and that's the whole point. The Gravel Jacket and Pant does. It feels like an adventure touring textile suit. Linesman, no. So if you're looking for high levels of comfort and you're looking for gear that really doesn't feel like motorcycle gear, and you're trail riding in warmer climates, Linesman Jacket and Pant have really been developed for you. The Gravel, if you're wearing the Gravel Jacket and Pant next to the Linesman Jacket and Pant, you're going to be much more comfortable in colder, windier, wetter conditions than with the Linesman. But if it's hot, you're trail riding through Spain in the summer and it's 28 to 32 degrees, the Linesman gear is what you're going to want to be in. Okay, Gravel Jacket and Pant and Mongolia Jacket Pant. And I'm also going to kind of talk about Mongolia and Atacama together because they're essentially very, very similar products. So these are, I guess they're more closely aligned. The Mongolia Jacket and Pant are really designed for warmer, more focused riding, such as rally riding, which is what it was developed for. The jacket, the Mongolia jacket especially, is very, very vented, has no waterproofing built into it at all. So if you're riding hot and fast, the Mongolia jacket's what you're going to want to be wearing. It's very, very comfortable, very lightweight. The Mongolia pant, I guess the Mongolia pant has 1000D fabric combined with stretch panels. So the Mongolia pant is pretty tough and durable and offers some light rain resistance. However, it is much stretchier than the Gravel pant. So again, really the Mongolia jacket and pant is designed to be worn in warmer conditions. You layer up if it's wet, you put your waterproofing over the top. The Gravel jacket and pant, again, wetter, colder conditions, less likely to need to layer up, and you're just kind of putting big miles on. So would I ride through the desert? Would I go to Morocco in the Gravel jacket and pant? Possibly not in the height of summer. In winter, yeah, you know, especially if you're going up into the Atlas Mountains and into altitude and it's going to get colder. And I think the Gravel jacket and pant would work well. But in the height of summer, I think that if you're going to kind of be riding on the trails and the dunes on the roads of somewhere like Morocco, I think that the Mongolia jacket and pant is going to be much better suited to you. So Gravel jacket and pant are very much aligned with the principles of ADV layering, which is very much in line with what the outdoors community have been doing for a long time. How do you layer up for the conditions that you're experiencing? If you're walking, hiking, running, cycling, and in our case, motorcycling through. So that said, it's very much more on the consistent scale of things. It's not so much designed for riding where you're going to be raising your own core body temperature because you're dropping bikes, picking up bikes, doing harder technical riding. It's very much more designed for a consistent experience, especially if that experience is colder, wetter, and windier. So core base layers. Getting your base layers right is a very important step in layering. So we have the core long sleeve, core shorts, and core long leg, as well as the core armor pocket long sleeve, which is essentially a core base layer that you can put your armor into. So a good way of layering up is to start with that. So if it was particularly hot, I might just have the core shorts on. I might have a t-shirt on underneath the Gravel jacket. If it was a little bit cooler, or I wanted an increased level of comfort, I would put the core long sleeve on. That's also going to help wick away any sweat that builds up. Mid layer is a great way regulating your body temperature. It's not rocket science. If it's cold, you can put a mid layer on. If it's hot, you can take a mid layer off, and essentially you're leaving your outer layer as it was. So your abrasion protection, your weather protection is always performed by the Gravel jacket. So the Baltic Hybrid mid layer is what I'm wearing now. I wear it almost every day. It's a great way of adding a little bit of extra warmth. It's designed to be stretchy and breathable around your arms and your back, and has extra insulated panels on the areas that you need it, around your chest and your kidneys. And if that's not warm enough, there's the Baltic Insulated, which is our most insulated mid layer. It's the warmest item that we have. It's very, very good at trapping your body heat and preventing it from escaping. And in winter riding, such as what we're just coming out of now, it's kind of the end of winter here in the UK, I've been wearing the Gravel jacket with my Baltic Insulated to great effect. So the Gravel and the Linesman jacket, slightly unconventional pairing, but it is possible. I was out in Wales with Chris and it was cold and wet, and Chris hates being cold and wet and he had the Gravel jacket and pant on, and underneath the Gravel jacket he was actually wearing his Linesman jacket. So he didn't have armor in the Linesman jacket, but he was wearing that essentially as a substantial soft shell. And yes, it does have extra abrasion panels in the arms and shoulders, but really once you take all of the armor out, it is possible to wear that jacket as a mid layer. Gravel jacket and the super shirt. So yep, super shirt is a base layer. It's really designed as a base layer that has your abrasion and impact protection built into it. It is CE AA rated, so putting the gravel jacket over the top of the super shirt is slightly unconventional. However, if you were to do that and the super shirt was keeping all your armor where you need it to be against your body, I think the level of protection that you're adding, which is essentially 2 CEAA rated garments together, is particularly high and does work well. I know that in Scotland, Davey, who was on the Gas, had his super shirt, and he was wearing that along with the gravel jacket over the top as well. Okay, so who is the Gravel Jacket and Pant for? Well, you know, if you've watched the whole of this film and you've got to this point, I think you've got a good idea of who the Gravel Jacket and Pant is aimed at. So just to recap, it's primarily an adventure touring suit. Here in the UK and Northern Europe, it really excels in colder, wetter, windier conditions. So I will class that as our kind of autumn, winter, springtime riding. Could ride throughout the summer, especially if you're jumping and on the bike and heading down the motorway somewhere. Probably a little bit overkill for trail riding in the peak of summer, but for most of the rest of the year, I think it's a great combo. You can wear the gravel suit to ride whatever you want. If it works for you, great. In the context of the Adventure Spec range of gear, the more technical trail riding, the more multi-day kind of like tech stuff, the more rally stuff you're doing, we have other options, and I've covered that in the context of the Linesman and the Mongolia gear and the Singletrack gear. So that's not to say you can't trail ride, you can't hard trail ride with the gravel gear on. I think it does perform actually better than it should in those conditions, but again, in the context of what we make, there are other options for that kind of riding. This is really focused at adventure touring. The name, the Gravel Jacket and Pant, the gravel suit, it really came from this idea of this is the perfect adventure touring suit for riding through Scandinavia. You know, especially if you adhere to kind of the philosophy of light is right and you kind of prefer a more minimal approach to your adventure motorcycling. I think that you know, that region of Northern Europe has got big, long, flowing gravel, and that's exactly what this is built for. Starbucks, up to you. I'm not going to judge you. I don't mind popping out every now and then for posh coffee. So yeah, I'm more than happy to do it in my Gravel Jacket and Pant. Okay, we are at the end. What a long one. Again, thank you for sticking it out, and I really hope I've answered as many questions as you might have. I tried to be as thorough as I could and cover all the angles, but I'm sure you will have some more questions, so do feel free to leave them in the comments. I really enjoyed the gravel project from start to finish. I do remember sitting in a bit of a cramped boardroom brainstorming this product. Years ago now. It is, as ever, taken us a little bit longer than we wanted to bring it to market, but the amount of testing we've done, I'm really satisfied that what we're bringing to you is a really, really well thought out and well considered product. I think the highlight for me, I mean, I've worn it a lot in wetter weather. I was up in Scotland with Davey making that film. Go find it, follow the links, it's a good one. Had a bit of a, well, we didn't all make it home together, put it that way. You can go and find out what happened.
So, Davey, I think we head that way. There's a gate, and it's obvious that it's like private and we shouldn't be there. We won't go. Oh, is that the gravel right there?
That's the gravel there, that's the left turn there.
No gate there. Nothing saying don't be there. It's marked as a track on the OS map, so we're going to go and see what's down there. Look at this, Davey!
What a find this one is!
But really, going back to the start of this film, finding that causeway was like, yeah, I think it just like it summed up this chapter of where we're at with Adventure Spec. You know, I think that the Transfer Trail has been wonderful. Following the GPS and making it so easy to find trails has been absolutely incredible. I think we've all been out there making well, memories that will be with us for the end of our days on the Trans-Euro Trail. The approach that we took in Scotland was a little bit more, let's see what happens, and you know, opening the door to discovering that causeway, beaches on the Outer Hebrides, and trails that we didn't know existed. I really think, yeah, I think it does well to sum up what the Gravel Jacket and Pant was built for. Really about kind of getting out big miles, don't know what's at the end of them. Could be trails, could be road, could be poor weather, a bit of everything. And I think the idea of an all-terrain 4-season adventure touring suit really works well for that kind of adventure. So yeah, thank you for your time. I really hope you enjoy your Gravel Jacket and Pant. I hope it helps you get out and experience some wonderful adventures and make some wonderful memories, and do remember to tag us and let us know where you get up to. Thank you.